Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Wednesday. And by happy Wednesday, I mean let me pay you Wednesday for the happiness of Thursday. That reference works a little bit better with Tuesday. But we are going to be going over the patch notes for the hotfix 1.7.4. Not expecting there to be a happy Thursday tomorrow. Not expecting there to be a dev diary tomorrow because all of the devs are on vacation at this point for Victoria 3. And so this might be it for a little while. But this is a pretty substantive patch. And also, this is going to be the patch that we're probably going to be on for the next few weeks, as far as I can tell. And so we're going to do a little bit of a rundown of the patch notes. We'll make our head a little bit smaller, as one does, because that way you can see fully all the lettering. Okay, so, hello Victorians. We have a larger hotfix today, featuring a range of balance changes. There's quite a bit of balance changes. In particular, I think it's the end of the Yo-Yo sway era, but we'll get to that when we get to it. AI improvements, bug fixes, and more. More is my favorite. Most of the team will be on vacation now, but part of the team, including Martin, will still be around, so maintain that capacity to release fixes as needed. So I guess we might see a little bit more, but I am anticipating that the lion's share of the devs that they kept back from vacation to work on this patch are now on vacation or going on to vacation. So this is my guess, although I suppose I do not fully rightly know how much they want to stagger their staff. Check some for the patches 5775. As always, this post is not for bug reports. Please instead post them to the bug reporting forum. You heard it here first. If you want to report a bug, this is the proper place. Including save and steps to recreate is always useful. The following changes have been made to the game compared to patch 1.7.3, which is a good way of saying this is patch 1.7.4. It is live, not for problem reports. For those of you who have problems, of course, do not actually report them here like I jokingly suggested you do 30 seconds ago. For content, added a journal entry for the reunification of China. China blows up a lot, and so there being a journal entry for it, and also making the AI want to progress towards that does seem reasonable. It is once again possible to start reduced autonomy and annex subject play against diplomatic or against subjects, even if their liberty desire is high. However, doing so will result in taking on the full infamy cost of the war goal rather than the usual reduction for targeting subjects. This is a change I like quite a lot. This makes a lot of sense, and this also makes it so you can build up a whole bunch of subjects early on and then move to annex them as the game gets kind of later. And so this will be an interesting play pattern when you decide to flip the switch. Regarding going high infamy, I was just thinking of the UK run I'm currently working on. I was like, I'm never going to be able to annex every subject because if I eventually want to turn the corner and go high infamy, they're all just going to hate my guts and I'll never be able to reduce autonomy on them. But this does allow that sort of thing, and I think it makes sense. It doesn't make sense that someone suddenly becomes immune from being attacked if you want to just brutalize the rest of the world. So, okay. Peasant levies now simply prevents conscripts from being raised as cavalry or artillery, as selective limits on which type of infantry could be raised conscript would not work correctly. You used to be able to cheese it. You used to be able to roll back to irregulars. I guess we haven't checked yet if you can still cheese it in some regard, but you used to be able to roll back to irregulars, and then put in a whole bunch of conscripts, and then roll forward to something like skirmish, and then upgrade all, and the upgrade all button would upgrade them independently of the fact that it's not supposed to be allowed. So we'll see if that's still in play. Russia and Britain start out with neutral attitude towards Persia, ensuring they don't immediately go for the throat until Persia does something to earn their ire. This certainly will make playing Persia more enjoyable. Reduce the rate at which the Russian-British agreement fires for player Afghanistan during the Pamir delimitation. Words are hard. Added Vilnius to the required states to form for Poland, Lithuania. Well, we just did that, so that's not going to affect us. Renamed Semenreche to Semeninplatinsk. Okay, we can't pronounce either one. Removed Uyghur homelands from this area. That's a shame because we were planning on doing a Uyghur run, which is now just Uyghur with one less state. Autonomous investment is now able to execute multiple investments per tick for countries with extremely large 500k plus income investment pools, so that even massive economies can continue to make full use of the investment pool. Fantastic. One of the reasons that was like kind of a little bit frustrating, and also like didn't make sense from a game perspective, is you would eventually reach a point where your investment pool just got so big that the game just couldn't handle reinvestment as a project, and this would be a limiting factor. And hopefully this does put an end to that, and you could actually still crank even as your economy starts to get larger and larger. Homesteading and collectivized agriculture now also impacts subsistence farms. This is actually probably a pretty substantive change. I think homesteading is going to be good to get on early because it allows peasants to migrate, but more importantly now, if it's changing half the ownership, then this should, for countries that are going to have a lot of manor houses because of subsistence farms, this should in theory cut them in half, right? If we are changing the ownership to be half local. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but that's what homesteading does. It forces half of it to be localized, and if you do this, then it's going to make it easier to undermine the manor houses because you don't want them to be owning your mines and logging camps. And so this also makes sense. It's also going to make the rural folk really powerful. Rural folk are kind of like annoying, but I guess you're trading one annoying group for another, right? Because landowners are annoying too. Military treaty block leaders can no longer enact national militia. This is great. This seems certainly reasonable. National militia is probably meta. Military treaty block, I suppose, gets even worse in that regard because, it's probably the worst block. Maybe not. And religious convocation, power block leaders can no longer enact total separation or state atheism. Boo! We wanted to do atheist pope, power block. Okay. The cohesion in military treaty blocks is now impacted for any member of national militia, and same goes to a greater extent for members of religious convocation who have total separation or state atheism. Makes sense. Defensive cooperation too now permits the power block leader to impose the army model law on the block. Makes sense. Treaty ports now only function against the market if they are adjacent to an incorporated state from the market. Okay, so you can't take a treaty part against something that's not unincorporated. So you can't take let's say a Portuguese colony, a treaty port in there, and then have a treaty port on Portugal. That's interesting. Certainly makes sense. Moved or removed some military units from formations in the history setup so that they adhere to the law set in that country. Okay. Overlord compliance AI strategy is now invalidated if the subject ends up opposing their overlord in a diplomatic play. This makes sense. Power block statues are now removed when leaving a block. This makes sense. You don't erect a statue of Lenin and then convert to capitalism, and then the statue of Lenin gives you capitalist bonuses. So, yeah. The autonomy investment AI should properly focus on privatization. When construction is blocked due to a lack of workforce or infrastructure, this is going to be nice. Often what was feeling like was happening in the Hyperlake game is that you were building more buildings than your private queue could pick up, and if they are dealing with that, then something like something that was theoretically better, like laissez-faire, but practically worse because you didn't get the AI or like the mechanics of the game weren't behaving as they are like kind of outlined to do. This should happen less with this sort of thing. Under cooperative ownership, buildings in foreign countries that are owned by local manor houses and financial districts will now be collectivized by the workforce in those countries over time. Interesting. Buildings in foreign countries that are owned by local manor houses, buildings in foreign countries that are owned by local manor houses and financial districts will now be collectivized by the workforce in those countries over time. I think that this is written in a way that I'm not actually sure what they're trying to say here. If you have ownership abroad with manor house and financial district locally, not abroad, then those will slowly be collectivized by the workforce in other countries. If that is the case, then this is a really significant nerf to cooperative ownership if you're just going to slowly lose ownership of buildings you have abroad. If they have to buy you out, though, that's not as bad. Added a new entry for your leverage to all countries' details panels. Oh, thank God. This will, looking up and kind of trying to make sense of leverage is just kind of from a UI perspective not that great. Remove tooltip modifiers to reduce duplicated information. Good. Improved construction lens performance after having opened it before. This is fantastic. The construction lens is like the only thing that like feels really bad, and if they've improved that significantly, that's like, I mean, already the game's so much faster, so like I feel like silly complaining about the lens thing, but the lens thing being sped up after, it's going to be good. Now we have balance, and there are some, I think, pretty good balance changes. Restored the plus clout modifiers to landowners from slavery laws, as landowners ended up 2 weeks in some countries after other related balance changes to subsistence farms. I saw some people complaining about this. This seems fine to me, but I don't have a strong opinion on it. Reduced AI, advanced research, 3 principal max innovation gain per institution from 15 to 10. They like just buffed it from 5 to 15. I guess they're just splitting the difference now. I'm not sure. I think advanced research is that good anyways, but I could be mistaken. I don't know. It's difficult to evaluate getting text faster. Surely you don't care really much about the tech spread because you would just build more universities to handle the tech spread, so it's really just about the ahead of time research bonuses and the max innovation gain per level or whatever. Political movements to get rid of traditionalism and serfdom now attract more support from literate pops once empiricism is researched. This is going to be really nice, generally speaking, because it's going to be easier to get off of those things as for you, the player, but probably not too much easier. Increase the lobby appeasement impact of support regime. Haiti now starts with debt. Haitian independence payments now cost less per week, but more to pay off in increments. Fix some setup issues in France that caused the July monarchy to collapse too quickly due to unprofitable buildings and trade routes. All right, fair enough. Improving relations will now give leverage to yourself and will not auto-break at 50 relations if the target is a power block leader. So this is going to be interesting and is maybe going to be a way to get out of blocks easier while maintaining good relations, because it's going to gain leverage on yourself. This is, I think it's nice to have an additional tool here, and from the player perspective, keeping people in their blocks might be harder now. But I'm not sure, though, what to leave the block if you have really good relations, so kind of interesting. Not sure how big a deal it will be. When a civil war ends in victory for either side, a larger number of pops are now de-radicalized to represent civil war fatigue and prevent a second civil war from immediately gaining steam. This is going to help out the AI a ton, because the AI often civil war spirals. And as you, the player, it will also make it more appealing to intentionally rev for the purposes of getting rid of radicalism so that you can construct more of this type of thing. Now it's much more of a trade-off. I still think the metagame's actually probably shifted from high taxes. High taxes are really good when you can get bankrolls. However, we're getting to the bankroll business. If you can't get as many bankrolls, high taxes become significantly worse, because a big reason why you were okay running the malices of all the high taxes stuff is because the amount of money you get from a bankroll is contingent on your tax income. And so it was effectively increasing a free money modifier. But now, let's get into it. Or it's going to be an AI where we talk about that. Italian states with nations with relations above 20 with Austria will no longer be able to spawn Italian radicals in it. That is interesting. That is going to make Austria a lot more enjoyable. You just improve relations with all the Italians, and you can't have a separatist movement. Reduced Australian radicals from Italian, gain from Italian miners. Divided monarchies now requires 50% radicals in capital to fail, up from 25%. Okay. Reduce the number of radicals generated over time from movement to preserve. This is going to be probably pretty nice. Overall, the amount of radicalism is way, way higher in this patch, and I kind of like it because it actually makes stuff a lot more scary, and I think that it's... I don't necessarily want to decrease it all a whole bunch, but I think that it's probably really off-putting for newer players. The amount of, like, it just feels like your country's collapsing that goes on. Okay. We have lowered the base and max weights for wine in luxury drink need, as adding it to intoxicants made it over-demanded compared to other goods and hurt the demand for tea, coffee. If people are actually interested in... I've been thinking of making a video on this, and it's going to be less timely because they've fixed it ostensibly with the wine. But substitution doesn't actually work the way you would intuit that it would work. It's not based on price at all. Instead, it's just based on sell orders, and they do this because it's just a concession, because if you did it based on price, the game would have to iterate multiple times, because if people bought something because something was cheap, they would increase the buy orders, which would increase the price, which would decrease the amount that they wanted to buy because it would no longer be cheap. And so you would create this feedback loop that just is way too many calculations. So instead, it's based on the number of sell orders in the market, which creates a perverse kind of effect when there's something influencing the sell orders, or in this case, wine was effectively double dipping sell orders from both intoxicants and luxury drinks. Its sell orders were informing both intoxicants and luxury drinks, which effectively made it so that it had double the buy orders it should, which made it so that the auto queue would construct a ton of it because the price was really expensive. It was very profitable, which would further increase the demand for it because there's now more sell orders in the market, informing both of the two. And I was thinking about talking about that, as well as some other stuff that you can play around with, like the substitution, such as creating additional trade routes and doing other stuff to influence the share of stuff that is going to be, or the share of consumer goods that are going to be a particular good based on PMs. This is a tangent, but I was thinking of making a video on this. If people are interested, please comment down below. But since they fixed wine, this might not be as necessary, although I think explaining kind of the underlying mechanics might be maybe interesting to some people. Take treaty port can no longer be added as a war goal against a state without a port constructed, as this results in an inactive treaty port. However, demolishing the port after the war goal is added will not invalidate the war goal. No more brick in the war goals than multiplayer, eh? The AI is more inclined to, or no more deleting your port in Hong Kong to brick the war goal if you're Qing against the UK, which is kind of a funny one. The AI is now more inclined to accept requests for support regime and knowledge sharing under favorable conditions. The military power, and this is one of the biggest changes in forming like kind of what the pushed metagame looks like. The military power score increase for accepting reverse sways is now properly capped at 50, preventing the AI from accepting reverse sways that it should be utterly unwilling to accept. So no matter how big your military is now, instead of being able to get a plus 300 score, a plus 400 score, you're capped at plus 50, which is going to make it very, very hard to yo-yo sway for really anything. It's also going to make the AI less willing to accept help that it should be accepting if it's facing an existential threat that will just completely collapse it. Don't know what to do with this, but the metagame for some time has been just accumulating a whole bunch of bankrolls. I think I would rather see them attack it at the bankroll side of things, or make siding with one side and then swapping back to the other side cost infamy. But this seems like a fine way to prevent you from just building up a ton of bankrolls with a variety of countries, and just like absolutely gutting them by just siphoning off all of their eco. The bankroll is still a problem. I assume that acquiring bankrolls is still insane, but it should be considerably harder now, and getting stuff like states and other really big things should be very much harder. Rebalance AI aggression. Yeah, so the Thunderdome patch is over. The world is healing. The base aggression to start Diplo plays is lower, but the impact of aggression on game rule is higher. However, the impact of the AI aggression game rule on strategic desires was toned down, so that the aggressive AI will still try to make strategic alliances, etc. So they now try and make friends, and they don't ultimate Thunderdome everything. Okay. Fixed a bug causing the AI to take a bunch of treaty ports that they should have no real interest in. The AI is now significantly more likely to get rid of traditionalism and serfdom. Fixed a logic when the AI carves up China to be more consistent with in how and when it is applied to the AI's desire to take states there. I mean, the states are really valuable is the problem. I don't know how they balance it. On a per infamy basis, they're the best states in the game. But like really, like infamy being tied to like being a specific state and then being based on population is just this weird thing. Maybe it shouldn't be like that, but that's the way it currently works. So if you're going to hit the cap, the infamy cap per state, because you have enough population there, you really just want to have as much population as possible. So More tweaking of the AI for Egypt Ottomans, early conflict to give the Ottomans a better chance of beating Egypt. Fixed a bug where the AI would not correctly evaluate placated political movements and was as able to start a revolution and would cancel laws that would result in a very powerful revolution, I assume, not evolution, this isn't Pokemon, to avoid a weaker one. The AI is now generally less willing, not West Lily, less willing to cede a territory when the demand state is used, when that territory is important to its owner, even if it is owned by one of their subjects. Fantastic. Fix some issues with AI strategic logic for countries, which was inadvertently applied to non-isolationist countries, causing AI to generally avoid befriending other countries. This was leading to the Thunderdome, because it was like something like everyone over 5 million GDP, you just wouldn't try and make friends with them. So now, hoping to see more blocks from the AI and friends and alliances and this type of stuff. Although you can get around alliances and stuff by just declaring in creative ways. The AI will now never accept having cut down to size pressed against them as part of a peace deal, but will likely have to capitulate. Never, but then likely? But will have to. Just kidding, I invented likely. Likely was never in there. Likely was never an option. My brain just auto-completed it. I take it all back. I apologize. They just never accept it now. AI will now try much harder to get rid of peasants' levies unless they are very reactionary. AI will make use of enforced military access on its subjects. Fixed issue where AI was setting way too high targets for army-navy size. And this was causing them to basically have no eco, partially caused by AI, including investee countries in its population census. So it does it based on population, and if it owns something abroad, it was counting that population in its own population when considering how much to build. And I think with the UK specifically, because the UK invests in all of its subjects, they were building like way too many battalions and just never going anywhere economically. The AI is now far less willing to give up war goals and peace deals unless those war goals are actually being contested. AI will now instantly capitulate in a war when they and their allies are 100% occupied. Fantastic. This is so great. This is such a nice little quality of life one, but it's just like, it's kind of annoying, especially with so demobilizing is still like a bit of a vibe. You demobilize instantly when you end all your wars, and so being able to find your way out of wars faster definitely feels really good. It also requires all their allies, so you can't just like rush someone down to enforce on them. Although, like, in theory, like EU4's peace mechanics are so much better where like you could enforce on someone, but then when making peace, their ally could just release them in the same war. The inability to add or shuffle or change war goals is still a problem, I think. AI is much more likely to target their own domestic states and subjects with government-funded constructions, fantastic, and less likely to target foreign states. This does not impact autonomous investment, which has its own logic for domestic versus foreign. Yeah, it should just go for the most profitable, whereas, government-owned should care about building in your own country. We'll skip the modding stuff because we don't really quite know too much about that, and there are some bug fixes ones that were kind of important, but we're going to kind of cruise through and skim through them for the most part. Fixed a bug where it's possible for foreign investors to buy worker-owned buildings in countries with cooperative ownership enacted. Obviously, this shouldn't be allowed. There was fixed a bug where agitators who did not have the valid law for their ideology to support would almost always end up just picking a tiny handful of laws to start a movement, homesteading and national militia. I think that we experienced that a little bit in the UK run with them supporting National Guard, and it didn't make sense that the agitators were uber agitating for it. I thought fixed some issues with honorable restoration that made it too difficult to complete when not going the traditional market opening route, and ensured it's always completed when you defeat the Shogunate in the Civil War. That's going to change things up a bit, because this is how you used to do it really aggressively, was just force a civil war. Now I guess you could do that again, and okay, so it's going to be force a civil war, and this is going to be the way to do it. Fixed out of sync related to diplomatic catalysts. A lot of these are just going to be like little bugs. I think that there's one like really substantive bug in here, but I can't remember what it was. Debts accrued after declaring bankruptcy now count as debts rather than disappearing in a powerful bout of creative accounting. We hate it. We hate to see it. Creative accounting is our favorite. Fixed an issue causing predicted loyalist changes from successful enactment of political movement not applying correctly, so that's good. Save games are now cleaned of broken construction queue items when loaded. Fantastic. Fixed a small bug where pops that got all their income from dividends would not pay poll taxes, i.e. capitalist aristocrats now pay about 1% or 0.1 more percent taxes than before. This is actually pretty nice. Let's see. It is no longer possible to sway transfer subjects that are opposing their overlord into war. That was always kind of a weird one where you would be able to, in order to help them keep their subject, they would give up their subject, which is very, very funny. If I can't have him, someone else will. Downsizing military buildings would not properly remove the units from the formations. Thank God. This is actually such an obnoxious one. I'm glad they improved it. Tanzimat are pinned by default. This is a really nice one for quality of life. Power block emblems are now properly centered. They were not before. It was a little bit of a hair tearing out. I think that I could have sworn there was a really big one, but I'm not seeing it in here. Fixed a construction queue tooltip to indicate the country is to indicate that the constructing country is paying the cost. This will be better for newer players, or important for newer players. Where is the... I thought there was a really big one, but maybe not. I apologize. Okay, I don't see... I thought that there was one pretty big, it's now possible to add the forced nationalization war goal to an ongoing diplomatic play. Was it not before? Okay. I thought I could have sworn there was a pretty big bug fix that was really substantive, but I think the biggest change from like what is this actually just hugely the change to the AI here is probably the biggest change when it comes to what is considered a good number for a run, because if this makes it difficult to acquire massive numbers of bankrolls, which is kind of how you do the most push run now, this will change that metagame up. And if you are not experiencing a bankroll, blasting high taxes is probably no longer correct with the nerfs to high taxes. So I'm keen on seeing if this changes things up quite a bit. I know it seems like maybe a little bit of a small change, but it might decrease like GDPs by 1900 by like 10 or 20% or something like this, maybe even 30%, because Victoria 3 is a very snowbally game, and if you can't like get something like a bankroll early on, then yeah. Also, maybe like Peru and Argentina will now no longer give themselves up in order to save themselves from the native uprising, just so they become your subject in order to avoid that, which is probably really good from like a themey perspective. I don't think that they should be giving themselves up like that, but that's a like play pattern. So excited to see this. I'm not sure when we are going to see another fix, unless it's a small bug fix. I don't think there's going to be another big patch for a couple months, so this might be it. There might not be a Happy Thursday tomorrow. The Happy Thursday may have to wait several weeks, but I hope you guys enjoyed this Happy Wednesday. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Do the YouTube algorithm thing, and other than that, have a good day.